tight end's position, when you have a really, really good receiving tight end, someone who can do it in a multi-dimensional facet, I think that Gesicki is one of those type of guys that can transition into being in the same conversations as the top guys like Kittle and other guys out there. And then you look at them adding Waddle, someone that he's familiar with from the college level on that outside. They have a good running attack. It's a loaded team on top of that. This Miami team, talent-wise, Flores in the front office of Miami has done an excellent job of constructing a team that can win. I think this is the year that not only Tua takes a big step forward, I look for the Miami Dolphins to take a very definitive step forward and being a much more competitive team this year as well.
Yeah, look, I agree with you. I think their defense is strong. We all know that. And then offensively, people aren't understanding what Tua had to go through. He was coming off that gruesome hip injury, all right, then didn't have much of an offseason or a preseason. And then he's battling with Ryan Fitzpatrick, whatever you want to call him, all right? And he had no receiving core either. And now you give him Will Fuller. You mentioned the tight end, Jalen Waddle, his boy from Alabama. I think he's going to be much more comfortable in the offense this year. And look, everybody is not going to be the quarterback to come in right away and work magic in the NFL. We've seen Kyler Murray come in and start right away, Justin Herbert, Joe Burrow and others. But that's not going to be every single quarterback. Because a guy may not light up the league in his first year doesn't mean he can't play. Now, I'm not saying I think Tua is going to be an all-pro, but I do think he will take a jump this season. And you're right, I think Miami as a whole will take a jump. He's got a great coaching staff. I think they're going to have that team playing complementary football on both sides of the ball. And with the new receiving core and then all of the offseason training that he's had versus what the preparation he had last year, the lack thereof, I think he is going to take a step forward and have a very good season.
I listen closely, guys. I listen
closely.
I hear a lot of excuse making for Tua, and the fact of the matter is he was the worst first-round quarterback last year. Justin Herbert had to deal with the same truncated offseason. Oh, and guess what? He wasn't even starting. They started Tyrod Taylor. Justin Herbert tossed into the fire and put up historically great rookie numbers. Joe Burrow going to an awful franchise with a pretty terrible head coach and put up great numbers and looked like a stud. And then you have Tua, who basically vomited all over himself several times, had to get pulled for the Harvard kid, Fitzpatrick. And, guys, I know you're bullish on this offseason, but LeVar, they dumped their offensive coordinator, Chan Gailey, who's like 67 years old, and they bring in a couple new guys, and you start digging around, and you're like, wait a sec. These guys historically have done a lot of two tight end heavy sets. Do they not trust Tua? Are they going to be running the football a lot this year? It goes counter because, as Chris said, they added Will Fuller, and that's a smart move. You get a rookie quarterback on the rookie deal. You go and add a good receiver. Everybody does that. Kyler Murray got it. Josh Allen got it in Buffalo. And I like the Will Fuller thing, once he comes back from the suspension. The Jalen Waddle acquisition is nice. But I start to wonder, LeVar, you look at the history of Alabama quarterbacks. They're playing with superstar receivers. And then Tua gets to the league, and he's throwing Devontae Parker and Preston Williams. And, okay, guys, I know you got to gas up the Penn State tight end. That's fine. He was on my fantasy team. He's very good.
He's good.
I just have a lot more questions than answers with Miami. And I will put a button on it this way. Brian Flores now on his third offensive coordinator in 3 years. They kind of lucked into a 10-6 year last year. They choke in the season finale against Buffalo's backups and miss the playoffs. I do think we'll see a little regression. They had some special teams luck. They had a lot of turnover luck. I believe they led the NFL in turnover margin. Everything just kind of felt lucky last year for them. I am going to go counter. I think the Dolphins missed the playoffs. Smells like 7-10 to me. And I'll close with this, LeVar.
Okay.
There's a reason Miami was doing more than kicking the tires on Deshaun Watson this offseason. There's a reason why when Deshaun Watson came down to Miami for whatever boxing match there was, the Dolphins brass was in the building. A lot of chatter about Deshaun Watson and Miami. I'm curious what happens if Tua stinks up the joint again this year.
You know, what's interesting is how you measure success. Sure, Herbert got Rookie of the Year. Wonderful. Sure, Joe Burrow had a better career, a better season statistically. Wonderful. That's success. You can measure success that way. It's interesting. Joe Burrow, for his troubles, got part of a team that won 4 games last year, and a jacked up knee from that season. That's one. Justin Herbert, their team went 7-9, and he got a new head coach. Oh yeah, new coaching staff in LA for that Rookie of the Year performance that he put up. So both had successful campaigns. I'll let that sink in.
What are you saying?
I'll pause and let that
what are you
sink
trying
in.
to say?
You can sit here. We can sit here and try to say the personal success that one has is measurable by saying that he's better than the next guy that didn't have that. But Tua has over a 500 in wins total as a starter in Miami, coming off of what you call excuses. I call it just life. You had to overcome an injury. You had to overcome a pandemic. I mean, hello. Joe Burrow is going to have to overcome an injury. Are we going to use an excuse for him? All right, so the idea of it is when I think about where Tua is right now and the opportunity that he has, with the setup that he has, with the stability that he has, come on. If I'm picking Miami versus looking at what Joe Burrow has in Cincinnati or what's taking place here in L.A. with Justin Herbert, he's not familiar with this new coach. He's going to have to get familiar and see what he can do. Was this first year a lightning flash, lightning in a bottle year for Herbert? Does he cool off? Is he better? I don't know. He has players. This is a well-constructed team that the Chargers have as well. But can he do it again? Can Joe Burrow come off of this knee injury and be what he was before the knee injury and make this Bengals team a more relevant team? So to me, when I say and I state very clearly that Tua's success is based upon the success that I believe that the Miami Dolphins team is going to have as a whole, I truly mean that. Just because you're not a Pro Bowl player or an All-Pro doesn't mean you can't have a tremendous campaign as a starter. We've seen Tom Brady and various other quarterbacks have successful years, and even I believe they won a Super Bowl one year or more, or appearances where Tom Brady wasn't an All-Pro or a Pro Bowler. So with that being said, the idea of measuring a guy's success based off of if personally he's an All-Pro or a Pro Bowl guy, I don't necessarily subscribe to that. I think Tua will make this Miami Dolphins team a better team this year. I do think he takes a very big step, a larger step, in being considered a legit quarterback that starts and gives his team chances to win in every game. I think he takes a definitive step this year.
J-Mac, you have to understand the difference between an excuse and an explanation. All right? A hip injury is an explanation. Yes. It just is. All right? It's not an excuse. It's an explanation that a guy has to deal with. All right? So that is not an excuse. And then you throw out the Deshaun Watson thing. Of course they went after Deshaun Watson. I mean, and I get the controversy and the problems he's created for himself now, but this was before that. Why wouldn't you go after Deshaun Watson, even if you like Tua? All right, in San Francisco, they like Jimmy Garoppolo, but they still went after Trey Lance. All right, Deshaun Watson's a top 5 quarterback in the league. So the fact that they went after him when they have a team, especially with the additions at receiver, when they have a team that's built to win right now, a team that wants to make the playoffs and do some damage right now, why wouldn't you go after Deshaun Watson, who, by the way, is still young himself? Why wouldn't you go after him? That doesn't mean you hate Tua. Doesn't mean you think Tua can't play, but you see the opportunity to get a guy who is a proven all-pro player over a guy who may be able to blossom into that. I think it was the right move to try to get Watson if he was available.
So how could Tua be good if you're instantly trying to get Deshaun Watson? Remember, there was a tank for
Didn't
Tua
I just
thing,
say?
Chris. They tried to tank for this guy. They saw him for half a season, and they're like, ooh, I don't think so. You don't see the Chargers trying to back up the brakes and go get Deshaun Watson, do you? Look at the third down passing numbers from Justin Herbert versus Tua. It's like, this guy's going to be a star, and what do we have here? And I'm not, I know it sounds like I'm taking a shot at Tua. He had an average to below average year. He was a great deep ball
It sounds like it. Listen, Own it.
I'm looking at the stats, which are facts, Chris. I'm dealing in reality. And the numbers for Tua in his rookie year were not good, okay? Justin Herbert was excellent. Joe Burrow was very good. Tua struggled. Now, he's a good deep ball thrower. I think the Will Fuller addition is good.
Herbert wasn't even
But
starting.
if you look at where they had Tua throwing the ball, guys, they didn't have him throwing out patterns. Now, is that because they don't trust him to make those patterns? And you have to wonder if getting pulled. LeVar, you would know this playing in the NFL. What's going on in Tua's head when he stinks up the joint and they pull him for Fitzpatrick? And then they do it again, and then they start looking at Deshaun Watson. Like, that's all happening in your first, like, I don't know, 10 months in the league. I just wonder mentally if Tua's going to come back. I like the optimism.
I mean,
he's a great story.
The guy took the man's job at halftime of the national championship game. He's been on the other side of that, by the way, J-Mac.
That's a good point.
His pedigree is well stated, is well represented. I don't look at it from that perspective. I look at Tua and I say to myself, is this a guy that can do it at the level? They said he might be under